Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here, and today we are going to be continuing on this series of Seneca's Letters to Lucilius. If you don't know what I'm talking about, basically Seneca is a Stoic philosopher who had a lot of really good things to say. My favorite Stoic philosopher, and I've done a whole series. You can check it out here on all the letters that he wrote to Lucilius. These are letters that he wrote a long time ago that have a lot of really good wisdom in them. Some of them are a little bit dry, some of them are, not so, but I'm basically going through them in this series and I'm explaining them, at least giving my commentary on them and reading them through here. So we are on letter 19 on worldliness and retirement. And he says, I leap for joy whenever I receive letters from you, for they fill me with hope. They are now not mere assurances concerning you, but guarantees. And I beg and pray you to proceed in this course, for what better request could I make of a friend than one which is to be made for his own sake? If possible, withdraw yourself from all the business of which you speak, and if you cannot do this, tear yourself away. We have dissipated enough of our time already. Let us in old age begin to pack up our baggage. So essentially what he's telling his friend here is basically retire. Basically get away from all these endeavors that you're going through, the government positions, the money that you're going after. Instead, just retire into philosophy so you can think and use your mind. Okay, now, this is something that has been sort of a recurring theme in some of these letters. We've talked about the subject a little bit before, so I'm not going to delve too much into this, but let's read on and see what else he says here. Surely there is nothing in this that men can begrudge us. We have spent our lives on the high seas, let us die in harbor. Not that I would advise you to try to win fame by your retirement. One's retirement should neither be paraded nor concealed. Not concealed, I say, for I shall not go so far in urging you as to expect you to condemn all men as mad and then seek out for yourself a hiding place and solitude, hiding place and oblivion. Rather make this your business, that your retirement be not conspicuous, though it should be obvious. It's kind of basically in the middle, like non-extreme positions that he has, where he's saying like, look, you're going into kind of you're going to monk mode. We'll call it monk mode. And what I want you to do is to not make it like so concealed. Like, don't say the whole world is mad. Don't completely withdraw from the world and be some kind of fucking hermit somewhere and no one even knows. But at the same time, you shouldn't be actually like trying to get fame from your retirement and trying to, basically build up this fame and glory in this world. But because you've retired and you've gone into monk mode, like you don't want to show everyone that this is what you're doing. And the reason why he's saying this is because what he's saying is that like if you go into retirement and you're doing it for people's basically appreciation of you, or if you're doing it to shun that, to basically show, like either way you're doing it for the wrong reason, right? You shouldn't be doing this because of those factors. You should be doing this because of the benefit that you're going to receive. And so if you're doing it that way, it'll just be normal. You just won't be making a big thing of it. And this is just a good lesson for life. A lot of times what we're trying to do when we're trying to do something is we're doing it for some kind of external validation. I've done some videos on external validation. You can check out, I think there's a playlist on this. But essentially, when we do things for that reason, to get some kind of validation externally, we're actually harming ourselves, because we should be giving ourselves validation. We should be choosing self-validation, which is we're choosing our actions based on what we're trying to accomplish, not on how it will look. Okay, and that's something that's really hard. I think a lot of us have a tendency, myself included, to sometimes do things for the show of it or for the non-show of it, as opposed to the function and the reason why, the real core reason behind doing something. In the second place, while those whose choice is unhampered from the start will deliberate on that other question, whether they wish to pass their lives in obscurity, in your case, there is not a free choice. Your ability and energy have thrust you into the work of the world, so have the charm of your writings and the friendships you have made with famous and notable men. Renown has already taken you by storm. You may sink yourself into the depths of obscurity and utterly hide yourself, yet your earlier acts will reveal you. He's basically saying here, in the second place, while those whose choice is unhampered from the start will deliberate on that question, right? So basically, what he's saying here is to his friend. He's saying like, look, dude, you've already been so awesome. It's just who you are. You've met so many people. You've made so much money. Like you're just like your writings have been good. You don't even have the choice. You can't go into obscurity because people are you've already made a name for yourself. Okay, it's kind of funny though that Seneca actually ended up making a bigger name for himself. But regardless, he's saying that you don't have that choice. Number 4, you cannot keep lurking in the dark. Much of the old gleam will follow you wherever you fly. Okay, peace you can claim for yourself without being disliked by anyone, without any sense of loss, and without any pangs of spirit. For what will you leave behind you that you can imagine yourself reluctant to leave? Your clients, but none of these men courts you for yourself. They merely court something from you. People used to hunt friends, but now they hunt pelf. If a lonely old man changes his will, the morning caller transfers him to another door. Great things cannot be bought for a small sum, so reckon up whether it is preferable to leave your own true self or merely some of your belongings. What's happening here is that people are not going to like you, or your clients are not going to like you for you. It's what you can give them, right? So again, this doesn't necessarily mean money. Like he's obviously, this guy's charismatic and there's some value, but they don't really they're not really after him for himself. And he talks about this idea of like if the will gets transferred to someone else, they'll be knocking on that guy's door. Would that you had the privilege of growing old amid the limited circumstances of your origin, and that fortune had not raised you to such heights. You were removed far from the sight of wholesome living by your swift rise to prosperity, by your province, and by your position as procurator. And by all that such things promise, you will next acquire more important duties, and after them still more. And what will be the result? So he's basically saying, look, you could have risen up the ranks, but you rose up so fast that you're kind of thrust into this. So let's move on here. So he says, number 6, why wait until there is nothing left for you to crave? That time will never come. We hold that there is a succession of causes from which fate is woven. Similarly, you may be sure there is a succession in our desires, for one begins where its predecessor ends. You have been thrust into an existence which will never itself put an end to your wretchedness and your slavery. Withdraw your chafed neck from the yoke. It is better that it should be cut off once for all than galled forever. So what he's talking about here is he's saying you've got the curse of being successful. Okay, you rose up, you're a fucking shining star so quickly on that you're in this trap now. You're in this kind of treadmill. You've got this yoke on your neck where you're constantly, every desire that you're meeting is opening up new desires, and you're constantly having more and more things that you want, and you're never going to reach that point. So you might as well just stop here, right? Don't say I'm going to stop when I reach some kind of point. It's never ending. You're on the hedonistic treadmill. It's never ending. So what you need to do is just stop. Just cut it right now and just deal with it so that you can actually get some value out of your life. Number 7, if you retreat to privacy, everything will be on a smaller scale, but you will be satisfied abundantly. In your present condition, however, there is no satisfaction in the plenty which is heaped upon you on all sides. Would you rather be poor and sated or rich and hungry? Prosperity is not only greedy, but it also lies exposed to the greed of others. And as long as nothing satisfies you, you cannot satisfy others. If you do go into the kind of retired life, your needs are going to be small. So you're going to be satisfied. You're going to be happy, actually. But even though you've got all the shit that you're getting now and all these treasures heaped upon you and all this fame and fortune and whatnot, now you're always hungry. You're never going to be sated, right? So which is better? Is it better to to have this quote wonderful life that everyone says that you should have, and to have all of this stuff, but never feel good about it, never actually be happy? Or is it better to live maybe a simpler life, but actually have everything that you need and feel fulfilled by that? When you basically feel fulfilled, you want other people that really actually be successful as well. You want what's good for them. Whereas when you're not, when you feel like you're still lacking, you get jealous. You get afraid when other people are actually successful or doing good things in their life. And it's true, and it's very hard to actually really truly love, because you feel like you're incomplete, right? And so you have to complete yourself first, and that's one of the keys, I think, that drives a lot of human behavior. Like, people are like that, right? Myself included. But you say, how can I take my leave? Any way you please. Reflect how many hazards you have ventured for the sake of money, and how much toil you have undertaken for a title. You must dare something to gain leisure also, or else grow old amid the worries of procuratorships abroad, and subsequently of civil duties at home, living in turmoil and in ever fresh floods of responsibilities, which no man has ever succeeded in avoiding by unobtrusiveness or by seclusions of life. For what bearing on the case has your personal desire for a secluded life? Your position in the world desires the opposite. What if even now you allow that position to grow greater, but all that is added to your successes will be added to your fears? Whatever it costs you to actually make money and become famous, it's gonna, like, you paid that price, so if you want seclusion, pay the price. Like, yes, there's gonna be a price to it, but pay that price. You're always gonna have this struggle. Like, you're not gonna escape the struggle. If you want the seclusion, right, you're gonna have to do it. And this is something that I think I can directly relate to with doing YouTube and having the books and the blog and stuff like that, and just, what I've done in the public eye, is that to some degree you're like, well, fuck, I don't want to, like, I'm afraid to leave it because how difficult it was to get there, and once you get kind of trapped into that, you're afraid to leave it. You're afraid to to leave that behind, right? So I've thought about this, like, I have to keep on doing YouTube videos, otherwise what will happen? Like, these people expect this of me, right? Like, this is who I am. Like, I have to keep on performing. I have to keep on producing, and I don't know. Like, I'm definitely in a struggle with that. So I can definitely see this. And sometimes I think, how nice it would be actually to just, like, turn off the internet, to turn off Facebook, to turn off YouTube, and to not have anyone know who I am, and not to be asking me things or emailing me, and just to live in seclusion, just to live a normal life again. So it's hard, actually, though, right? Because you can't just flip a switch and be living a normal life, right? It's a very big sacrifice and a very big decision, and it feels like you can't get out of it. So he's saying, and so it's hard. And so he's saying, yes, it's hard. But if you really want this, you're going to have to go through that. Number 9. At this point, I should like to quote a saying of Maecenas, who spoke the truth when he stood on the very summit. There's thunder even on the loftiest peaks. If you ask me in what book these words are found, they occur in the volume entitled Prometheus. He simply meant to say that these lofty peaks have their tops surrounded with thunderstorms. But is any power worth so high a price that a man like you would ever, in order to obtain it, adopt a style so debauched as that? Maecenas was indeed a man of parts, who would have left a great pattern for Roman oratory to follow, had his good fortune not made him effeminate, nay, had it not emasculated him. An end like his awaits you also, unless you forthwith shorten sail and, as Maecenas was not willing to do until it was too late, hug the shore. He's saying that no matter where you're at, obviously even the highest peaks have lightning, but he's also saying this. He's saying this Maecenas guy, okay, he had so much money and fame and fortune, lived such a cush life that he became effeminate. He became like a girl, okay, not like a Roman man. And because of that, he basically, was not able to represent and to be a good example, right? He says, a pattern for Roman oratory to follow, because he became like that. Again, I'm not trying to knock anything like, people individually, but I'm just saying that in this case, what he's saying, again, you have to look at the historical context of this, but it still applies today. What he's basically saying is that, like, too much of the good life will make you soft as fuck. You don't want to be soft. You want to be hard. You want to be tough. You want to actually have grit. And so you can't just, like, live the luxury good life and expect that to happen. It is going to spoil you. It is going to ruin you. And even then, your life isn't going to be, struggle free. There's still going to be lightning at the top of the highest peaks. So you might as well, basically purposely set out on the path to bring some hardships upon you to actually, like, do tough things. Otherwise, you'll get too soft. This saying of Maecenas might have squared my account with you, but I feel sure, knowing you, that you will get an out an injunction against me, and that you will be unwilling to accept payment of my debt in such crude and debased currency. However that may be, I shall draw on the account of Epicurus. He says, you must reflect carefully beforehand with whom you are to eat and drink, rather than what you are to eat and drink. For a dinner of meals without the company of a friend is like the life of a lion or a wolf. Number 11, he says, this privilege will not be yours unless you withdraw from the world. Otherwise, you will have as guests only those whom your slave secretary sorts out from the throng of callers. It is, however, a mistake to select your friend in the reception hall or to test him at the dinner table. The most serious misfortune for a busy man who is overwhelmed by his possessions is that he believes men to be his friends when he himself is not a friend to them, and that he deems his favors to be effective in winning friends, although in the case of certain men, the more they owe, the more they hate. A trifling debt makes a man your debtor, a large one makes him an enemy. So there's a few really good concepts here. One of them is that he's saying that, look, basically it's important to select who that you hang out with, who you eat and drink with, who you socialize with. Okay, otherwise you're going to be like a lion or a lone wolf. You're going to be alone. You're not going to have the company of others, not real friendships. And he's also saying that basically, unless you withdraw from the world to some degree, right, it's not going to happen, because someone's always going to be deciding who you're going to eat with and who your quote friends are going to be, and you're going to be testing people like in the lot when you're meeting them, right? You're going to be going on business meetings, right? So if I go on a business meeting with someone to do some kind of like promotion for YouTube or whatever for one of my businesses, or to sell me something, I don't they're going to be really friendly, but they're not really my friend, right? And I haven't really shown them any friendship. So we're going to have these like bullshit conversations over lunch, and we're not actually friends. We're just looking to see what we can get from each other, right? And that's how it operates. So he's putting that out there, but he's also making another point here, which I think is really, really, really interesting, that when you do good for someone, okay, a lot of times that debt is going to like let's say that you give some kind of favor to someone. In many cases, they're going to resent you for that, especially if you're in a position of power to be able to do that they're not, right? Or they feel like they owe you something in return because you did something for them, right? So that's why a couple of things from this, right? It's interesting that a large one makes him an enemy. So if someone asks you to borrow money, if you've ever done this before, especially a large sum of money, if you lend them the money, they'll probably actually start avoiding you and hating you and thinking that, because they justify in their head that you must be the asshole because they're actually the asshole, because they haven't actually paid you back the money, because they actually had to borrow money from you. So when you do something really good for someone, just remember that a lot of times, if they feel like they're indebted to you, and a lot of times they will, they're going to actually become more hateful toward you. And a lot of people try to actually win people over by doing them favors, and it has the opposite effect, right? The more that you do favors for someone, the more that you'll actually hate them. And number 12, what you say, do not kindnesses establish friendships? They do if one has had the privilege of choosing those who are to receive them, and if they are placed judiciously instead of being scattered broadcast. Therefore, while you are beginning to call your mind your own, meantime, apply this maxim of the wise. Consider that it is more important to receive who receives a thing than what he receives. Farewell. One last note on that is he's saying that be careful who you do favors or give something for, right? Because it doesn't matter necessarily what you give them to or what you give them. It's more important who. That's important, because when you just are willing to do things for people all the time, and you're just giving of yourself indiscriminately, it doesn't come across as good. And in fact, if you pick the wrong people, they're going to hate you. They're going to despise you, right? And there's actually a really good story of this in Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, where he talks about, I can't remember the prince, and essentially he has a stable boy that he does all these favors for, and ends up making him into a royalty. And then the guy eventually like kills him and puts his head on a pike, because he just felt so, all the good things that he was doing for him were making him feel inferior and in debt. And so his only solution was to kill his friend and to basically take over his throne. And so that's how people work. That's his human nature here. All right, that's all I have for you today. If you haven't already, make sure that you check out the whole playlist here, and make sure you click subscribe so you can get all of the letters. Be hitting letter number 20 next time. I'll talk to you later. Take care.